Hey, good evening, and welcome to my October series on paranormal events and supernatural events that I have experienced in my life. Many years. I'm going to be 70 very soon, and I thought that people would enjoy hearing these things, especially in October, so I hope you enjoy. The first experience that I remember, I was about 4, maybe 5. And I know this because, or at this time frame, because my parents got divorced when I was about 6, and my dad was still in the house. So this is why I believe it was probably around 1959. We lived in a neighborhood, and my parents had bought this 4-bedroom, 1.5-bath house after I was born, because before that we lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow, and that was way too small for my 2 brothers and a new baby, which was me. So they scraped and saved, and they purchased a house in a new development, and the development had been built in an orange grove, or where an orange grove had been. So every house had 3 or 4 orange trees in the backyard, which were left over from this orange grove that had been there. And this was California, foothills of the San Bernardino Mountains. It was not a thing. Everybody left their windows open. A lot of people left their doors open too. But we didn't leave our doors open during the day if we weren't home, but probably that was because my dad was a policeman, so he was very conscious of those things. So everybody's asleep. It's sometime in the middle of the night. I don't know when. I woke up one night. I had my own room. Had a twin-size bed, box springs mattress, no headboard, and this bed was pushed into a corner with the head of the bed facing out towards the backyard. And it was a summer night. The windows were open. My dad had built a 6-foot concrete block wall around our house, and it was the 1950s, so for the most part it was much safer. And I was sleeping too, and for some reason I woke up. And as I'm coming awake and looking around and wondering why I woke up, I happened to look down towards the foot of my bed, and there, sitting on the end of the bed, next to the wall in the corner, was what looked like about a foot in diameter spider thing. When I say spider thing, it was kind of a shadow spider. It was thicker. The legs were much heavier than you would think of as a regular spider, and I could not really see a face on the spider. It didn't look real from the sense of a spider that you'd see running across the floor or something. It had 8 legs, it moved like a spider, it had a kind of a head, I think, but it was not that discernible from the body. So I blink, and it's still there, and I sat up in bed and pulled myself up on my pillow, back up against the wall, and I started to crawl to the left, which I stopped because I would crawl right off the side of the bed onto the floor. So I pulled back and I looked, and as I'm moving, I'm watching what this thing is doing, and as I move to the left, it moves to the left, and that freaked me out even more because it was conscious and it was watching me, and it was countering what I was doing. So then I tried moving to the right. Of course, that was right into the sidewall, so that didn't work either. And I've just really freaked out and went to the left and literally crawled right off the side of the bed, hit the floor, screaming "Daddy," because apparently my dad would come in come in, not my mom. Probably my mom when I was littler, she did that, but when I got older, she probably said to him, well, if she wakes up, you go. And he was perfectly willing to do that. So he had been a Marine in World War II, had also now a policeman, so he was no stranger to waking up in a moment and acting. So I screamed for him, and I bet you it was 45 seconds before he was in my room. And he picked me up and said, what's wrong? And I said, there's a spider on my bed. And of course, it wasn't there then. And so he said, okay, well, it's all right. Just come on. Well, you just come sleep between Mom and me and it'll be fine. And I said, okay. So that's what we did. And I went back to sleep and I was fine. Of course, he didn't believe me about the spider. And of course, most parents wouldn't. And so that was it. And now I did see those through my life. Wherever I was, a lot of times I'd get up, if I, for whatever reason, got up in the middle of the night and there was a shadow. A lot of times they'd kind of hang out in the shadow of the doorway and that kind of stuff. And at first it really freaked me out, but after many years I got kind of used to it. And then when I got married and had my own kids, I would sometimes see them because I'd get up to take care of my kids and I would see them lingering. And finally, in my late 30s, I finally said, all right, I'm tired of this. You go. I don't want to see you anymore. And after that, I didn't see them again. So I wish I would have done that much sooner. Now, the next story is in the same time frame of years, and I was a little older. I don't remember how old I was. I think 7 or 8. So this is maybe 6, 7, 8. This is the early 1960s. Same room, and on the back, my bedroom was on the back of the house, and there were two, say 3 by 3 foot windows with window sills. This house was built in 1950. It was brand new, and it had all the things that a brand new 1950s house would have in terms of the crosshatch windows and California ranch style house and these beautiful windows with windowsills. Now it's a little later and my bed is now turned not to that side wall, but on the back of the house, still in the corner, but along the windows. So now I can get up on my knees and look out of the windows. And this particular night, I decided I don't think I was asleep. I think I hadn't been able to go to sleep. I was kind of tossing and turning. I decided to look out the windows, which was kind of odd because for as long as I can remember, I was always scared to look out of the windows at night because I always thought I might see somebody looking back at me. And I never have, so that's a good thing. But I decided to get up on my knees and put my little elbows on the windowsill and put my chin in my hands and stare up at the stars. And this was Southern California. This is where I lived, it felt more deserty, but it was at the foothills of the San Bernardino Mountains. So I'm looking up in the sky and it's just beautiful. There was very little pollution, and the stars, if you've ever seen a sky where there isn't a lot of pollution, if you're in a city, you can't really see the stars because of the light pollution. But back then, the stars looked like they were just everywhere. And as I was looking up, I saw this one sort of bright star that was of course, it was a star, so it was very, very far away, but it seemed to be brighter than the other stars. And so I was just gazing at it and thinking how pretty it was and how beautiful the sky was. And as I'm looking at this bright star, I become aware that on either side of the star, there are some points, much smaller points of light and the reason I noticed them was because there was movement, and I realized that these stars were in the configuration of a triangle with a star at each point. So the star on the right was the top of the triangle, and the stars on the left were the bottom, the wider part of the triangle. And so there's a star in each corner. And I'm watching these stars, and I see that they are moving in exact unison towards this bright star that I had been watching. And so now I'm very fascinated because I'm watching these little stars, and they were a little more yellow than the bright white star. And so they're moving very slowly, just took probably a minute or two, and they're getting closer and closer to this bright star. And while I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, oh, well, they know that I'm watching. And I didn't think about it till later. Well, who was they? I don't know. But I sort of knew they were watching, and they knew I was watching, and seemed fine. So the stars continued to come towards this big star. And eventually they got very, very close, and I'm thinking, gosh, I wonder what's going to happen, because are they going to collide with the star? I don't know. And they just got closer and closer, and then they all at the same time seemed to converge with the star. They didn't come out the other side. They just, once they went into the star, they were gone. So now I'm wondering, well, I wonder what's going to happen. I mean, what happened? What is this? And then after about a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, that bright star took off like a shot across the sky, and in not too many moments literally disappeared because it went so fast. And I've always remembered that with the clearest recollection, because I think that it was a very real experience. Now, what was that? I don't know. I mean, that should have been way beyond capability of anything up in the air at that time. Maybe it wasn't, I don't know, but it was always very strange. But I was never scared of the idea of a UFO after that, because I felt like, oh, that's no big problem, because they're very nice, whatever they are. And then the next story, and I mentioned this from the supernatural connection, although it was really quite mundane, but I believe that these three situations ended up sort of defining my life and what I was interested in and what I went towards. And so the last one was at around 4 or 5. I was invited to go to Vacation Bible School. And up to that point, I knew nothing about any type of religion. My parents never talked about it. They never mentioned it. And they seemed to be very agnostic to me about religion for most of my life. And I did not even hear anything about, they just never said anything about it until they were much, much older. So I feel like that Vacation Bible School was Jesus making an appearance in my life. And while I didn't go towards religion for many, many years, I did remember a song from Vacation Bible School called Jesus Loves Me, This I Know. And that stuck with me. So eventually I started kind of coming back to that. But that is what happened in my life. And tomorrow, thank you for coming. Please kindly like and subscribe. And I will continue the series tomorrow. And I'll tell you more stories from my supernatural and life. Thank you, and God bless.